In Chapter 5, we're going to talk about public policy and family policy. If you stay in the family and consumer sciences majors, there are whole classes that just focus on public and family policy that you can spend a whole semester studying this topic. So we just have one chapter to briefly introduce this to you guys, but it's definitely an important part of the family and consumer science curriculum that we offer here at USM. So first we start off with just talking about civic engagement. There's a quote from Thomas Jefferson that essentially says that citizens need to play a part in the development of society, and the primary way to do that is through creating policies. So if we see a need in our community, something's not going right, there's some kind of issue, then we're going to advocate for the lawmakers to address that and create some kind of change in our society. So as family and consumer science professionals, that's part of our responsibility is to be involved in the civic affairs of what's going on in our communities locally and statewide on the national level as well. So the difference between public policy and family policy. Um, Public policy is just this process of formulating questions, figuring out alternatives, and then determining what's the best answer of how to solve whatever problem it is, or creating new ideas for how to form the laws and regulations and things that make up our government. So when that starts to affect families, then that's when it gets into the family policy. So when we look at public policy through the lens of how is this going to affect families and relationships? Is this something that's going to strengthen families? Or is this something that's going to be hard on families? That's when we're looking at the public policy through the family policy lens. So as we're doing this process of looking at those public policies and through that family policy lens, we have the 5 I's. And this is the process of evaluating a public policy, being able to figure out what policy would be the best way to figure out how to strengthen our community, to improve that quality of life that we've been talking about throughout all the chapters. That's always our goal, is to improve quality of life. So is this policy that's being, debated, is this going to be good for families, or is this maybe something that we need to reevaluate? So we're going to go over the 5 I's. First, we've got the information phase. That's just your fact finding. There'll probably be cost benefit analysis, things like just doing the research, like how much is this going to cost? What does the current law say? Why are we changing it? What are the their benefits that are going to come from it? This is just really like getting as much information as you can and laying the foundation to figure out how effective this policy is going to be. And then we look at the issues. What are the problems? What's contributing to the current situation? How do people feel about it? What are alternatives maybe to what's going on right now and different possibilities. Then we're going to look at impact. These are who's going to be directly and immediately affected. What are the consequences going to be if this policy goes into place? And then implications could be sort of a more long-term or indirect effect. So who stands to be impacted the most by this policy? And that could be intentionally or unintentional results of something down the road. So being able to really think through, okay, if we do A, B, and C, then a few years down the road, how is that going to affect this neighborhood, this community, these families? And then we look at imperatives. So those are the most immediate needs. Those are the things that are going to be call to action. Is this something we need to take care of right now? Is this an emergency type of situation? So how urgent is it, and how quickly do we need to act? One example I can think of when I'm going through these 5 I's would be something like road construction. So a lot of times when they're deciding to build a new road, they'll do like an environmental impact study, right? So they'll look at the soil and what kind of plants are in the area. Are there any habitats for endangered animals that this road is going to disturb? Things like that. So we're familiar with those types of research being done. But say we look at it through the family lens, well, let's say, okay, if this road gets built, how is it going to impact families? So we need to gather the information about, well, what neighborhoods are near that road, and look at, okay, well, what's the commute time right now for these families, and where do they work, and why are they using these roads, and do they need this new road to be able to get to work faster? Is it going to impact them positively by helping them have shorter commute times and being able to have more time with their family? Or maybe it would impact them negatively because maybe it would bring a whole lot more road noise into their quiet neighborhood, and maybe they don't want it because it would not be a benefit. And then is this something that is pressing and urgent right now? Is there maybe not a way for an ambulance to get into the neighborhood, or something like that? Is that something that's an immediate need? So really a whole lot of different policies, different issues that we have in our communities can be looked at through this family policy lens. So as we're thinking about this from being a family and consumer science professional, what is our role as we are taking on this responsibility of we're going to advocate for families, we're going to be involved in helping build communities? Uh, how does that look for us as FCS professionals? Um, it really is a responsibility that we need to take seriously. We do need to stay informed of all the issues and to be involved, like we were talking about with just that civic engagement, like really putting the time and effort into getting involved in our communities. And a lot of us might work for, in the future, nonprofits or companies that deal directly with these types of situations. If you work for a nonprofit, maybe that's advocating for the foster care system or something like that, you might be involved in family policy every single day that you're going to work. So it's really important to stay informed on the current issues, to voice your support for programs that do help strengthen families, or opposition if you feel like a program or an initiative or a rule is not going to help families, if it's going to harm families. And then also educating people around us about all those things, and having discussions. And if there's a town hall meeting or a public forum, it's our responsibility to go to those things and to bring up these family issues, because there's going to be people advocating for both sides of any issue. They're going to have their own interests. So as our interest is representing families. Okay, so AAFCS doesn't get into specific policies that they're going to support. So they like to put it in a more broad perspective. And so we look at policy issues. So a policy issue review can result in an initiative in a specific program. But we want to look at more of these broad categories. So they focus on family support and interdependence, family partnerships and empowerment, and family diversity. And then those things can be further developed into different specific programs and initiatives. So these are, again, kind of going back to those main goals, the foundation, the BOK that we talked about in a previous chapter. These are the things that are going to support those goals and ideals of what FCS professionals are trying to accomplish with strengthening families. So we're going to just look at 3 different categories of public policy initiatives that AAFCS would support. These are kind of 3 big important things that are affecting families right now. So this is sort of a current focus of what AAFCS is trying to promote and support. So if there's, in your own community, if there's an initiative going on, or an idea for a policy that might be up for a vote or something like that, we want to look at it through this lens of strengthening families and the family and consumer science professionals. So the 3 categories are health and wellness, financial literacy, and childcare. So obviously, when we think about like Maslow's hierarchy, health and wellness is something that's one of those basic human needs. So if there's some kind of initiative or policy going on that's going to help keep families healthy, maybe there's exercise things or something about bringing awareness to a disease or something like that, or stopping smoking campaigns. All of those things would be supported by family and consumer science professionals. Financial literacy is so important. We see a lot of families in poverty, and this is obviously a huge problem. And to be able to help those families to be able to support themselves. So if there's financial literacy classes going on, maybe the local community center wants to host a job fair, something like that, that would be something that would be supported by AFCS. And then finally, childcare, which we've talked about already in the previous chapter, being a really tough situation for a lot of families in our country, and we really are lagging behind, and this is becoming something that is urgent. This is one of those, how imperative is this? If you're a single parent and you have to provide for your kids, it is very important and urgent that we can help families get affordable and quality child care so that they can be able to go to work knowing that their kids are safe and that they're going to be well taken care of. So any kind of initiatives that would help increase that availability to affordable childcare would be something that would be supported by AAFCS. So just encourage you guys to get involved in your communities, be on the lookout for issues that are going on with local and even on the national level when elections are coming up, and to do your research and to get out there and share your voice and your opinions and be able to help educate people when we look at those topics through the lens of a family policy.